Today, me and Ben will be talking about what it was like for him being raised by a non-black mother and what it was like for him being adopted. I think this topic is important because a lot of us around the world are dealing with the same problems that he had to deal with. And I thought it would be good to ask him the questions and see where he comes from and what he think about, his outlook on the whole situation. So Ben, my first question is, what was it like being raised by a non-black mother?
I think that there are definitely advantages to that in regard to maybe there's kind of a certain stereotype around the black community, maybe being like low income, kind of rough neighborhoods, the hood, so to speak. But I didn't really have to deal with any of that stuff or that image necessarily in terms of my upbringing. So I would say in that regard, it was advantageous.
What I'm trying to get at is, being that your mother was Caucasian, do you feel that, what was that like? Because obviously she's Caucasian, she can't relate to you so much because you're African American, and so with her being Caucasian and with, just how history repeats itself, or just how the world was, what was it like? Did your mom, just anything, like what was it like being raised by a Caucasian mother? Besides, okay, yes, you have your, like, what were the pros and cons? Of course, the pros would be you didn't have to live in poverty. You didn't have to be subject to, your life being taken away through gun violence or anything like that. Or, what was it? Honestly speaking.
I definitely think there is a different culture, and I think it affects how I maybe view myself, I guess.
Can you explain? How do you view yourself?
Like, sure, black history is definitely part of who I am. I'm not in denial of that at all. But I guess there's a sense in which I don't necessarily look back. I'm trying to figure out how to think of this.
Take your time.
I guess I feel there's a disconnect between my cultural experience growing up
in the black community. I understand what you're saying. And that's totally understandable because you can't really relate to something unless you actually live that or you experienced it. So that's totally understandable. So overall, you would just say being raised by a non-black mother, or, it was what?
I think overall, I don't necessarily have any regrets about that in particularly, but in a way it does create kind of a disconnect with me and the black community, the broader black community in general, because my experience is not aligned with the general overall black experience, or whatever you want to call it.
So like sometimes you feel like you can't relate, or you're just like, what is that, or y'all do that, or like,
exactly.
And I see what Ben's saying, because I've been knowing Ben not a year, but at least about 6 months or so. No, a little longer than that, about 9 months. And when I first met him, I knew that he was not from where I was from. Like, we had different upbringing. I knew that, but that didn't stop me from trying to understand him better, or we can sit and talk about things without him judging me or me judging him and things like that. And yes, I know we don't relate on everything, because I can tell when he actually shared to me he was raised by a Caucasian mother, it made sense, like, oh, okay, that's why he's this way, or that's why, different things. But I thank you for your honesty, and I totally get you, and I don't judge Ben. I think Ben is pretty cool. There's times he goes off on me, but we're not going to get into that. But thank you for your honesty. My next question is, did you feel that you were ever treated differently, or did you ever wonder why your mother was this color and you're that color, or did you ever get treated differently because of your skin color by other kids? Because I'm sure you went to white schools, all right? You didn't really go to school with many blacks or anything. Like, did you ever feel you were treated differently because of your skin color?
I would not necessarily say that I was treated differently because of my skin color per se.
Okay.
think the area that I grew up in was diverse enough, more or less, especially the older I got, because we had a lot of Hispanics that would kind of move into the area.
Okay.
I think it was diverse enough where that wasn't such a weird thing that there's
So
this
are
black
you
guy.
saying like there were blacks, there were whites, and there were Hispanics?
Yeah, in different parts of where I grew up in,
Okay.
there was part that was there were a lot of blacks, and there were certain parts where there were more Hispanics, and there were parts where it was predominantly white.
So overall, you don't feel at all that you were ever discriminated against? You were never made fun of? You were never made fun of your skin color or anything like that?
I don't ever remember being made fun of.
That's good.
By my skin color outright. I do think it affects who I hang out with, though. In terms of like, most of my friends are white, so I think in that sense, I don't really. I can only maybe think of maybe a few black friends that I had in my lifetime. Most of them are white, and so in that sense, it shaped my relationships that I've had throughout the course of my life.
Okay, and this one kind of piggies back off the question that I asked, but it's different. Have you ever felt unloved due to you being adopted? Like whether it's that from your biological mother, or do you feel like you didn't receive all the love from your mother who adopted you? Just whatever. Have you ever felt unloved?
I wouldn't say that I felt unloved by my adopted mother, because I'd be honest, I don't really think about my adopted mother that much. I kind of just consider my biological mother. I don't really think about my biological mother that much.
Okay.
I view my adopted mother as my mom.
Yeah.
That said, there are times where I have felt unloved by my adopted mother.
You felt unloved by your adopted mother?
Well, because I have an older brother who is a biological child, and in a way, and maybe it's because of how I acted to some degree, but she kind of held him up on a pedestal, and kind of had me down here. Okay. And so that sense, I'm like, I felt less than him.
So this is your biological brother?
No, this is my adopted brother.
Oh, okay, got it.
But in that sense, there was that feeling of maybe I'm not that important. Maybe I'm not.
Is he Caucasian? Is he black?
Oh, he's kind of mixed because he's black, but he also has other stuff. Okay.
And these are your parents' child together?
Yes.
Okay, now I get what you're saying. Okay. At times you feel unloved because...
Yeah, because
his biological parents probably, just like you said, held him to a higher standard.
Yeah,
and like
you held him up on a pedestal above me.
Towards you. Got it. Do you think, this is not on my notes, but it just occurred to me. Do you think that being raised by your mother, that made you look at black women like they're less than, or like, because my mother was black, she did this, or just because whatever you hear from the black community and you didn't actually grow up in that community, do you look at black women less than, or do you discriminate? Do you feel like, nope, I don't want that, I want a white woman? Because like, what do you think?
I don't know if it's discrimination, because I don't see it as just discriminating, but I feel like because of the disconnect, maybe I look at what I've seen and experienced of black culture, and it kind of turns me off, where it's like, I don't really want to have anything to do with that, and I'm more used to I guess, kind of reserved, kind of white kind of culture. So I would say...
Would you say that's because of your upbringing, and you don't really know how to relate to the black community or the black woman?
I think that definitely plays a role in my preferences.
Okay.
Because I do tend to prefer white women over black women for the most part. So,
but you're not discriminating. Like if she so happened to...
Yeah, I wouldn't call it discrimination, but it definitely affects my preferences. Yeah. Because like I look at black culture, black women, and it's like a lot of times it's like, I know I don't want that. In all seriousness, I would I'd rather marry someone who's white, I guess.
Is it someone who's white or just someone who's not black? Or is it both?
I'm open to anyone, but I find that most of the people I prefer are not black.
Is that because you think that maybe white women can understand you better? Because some black women, I can see how because you're different, you were raised differently, you were raised by a white woman, that they may not understand you. Could that have a lot to do with it also? Because I can see where you're going with it.
I think that could play a role in that because my upbringing, my culture is way different. I would say more reserved than maybe what I've seen of black culture, so to speak.
Got it. Do you feel that you were not exposed to your black community enough? Like, did your mom or your dad make sure that you had that interaction with other black kids or your other black family, or were you not exposed enough? Do you feel you were exposed enough to that?
I do have black family, but they're mainly on like the East Coast.
Okay.
And in that sense, I've had exposure to black community that is very different than being in South Carolina, which is where my dad grew up, is different than being in California, obviously. So in that sense, there is kind of somewhat of a disconnect in that regard to like what I would see there is different than maybe what I would experience, say, in California.
Okay.
So in that regard, I did have interaction with black people, but in the area that I lived, not really, because they didn't make it a point to go out of their way to expose me to the black community locally.
So your parents did not really, you feel they could have did better at that? Even exposing you to decent black families, they could have did better at that? Because there are some decent black families that, you know, were probably in your area, your community, where you could have had that exposure and that lifestyle.
Possibly, but I think the thing is, like, I don't even know if they knew that many black families. I mean, there were people from church and family friends, things like that, who were black, but there wasn't that many of them.
Okay. And now that I look at my next question, I kind of already asked this, but do you feel that the black community accepts you? Or do you feel the black community accepts you more, or the white community?
I think that overall the white community, I think, accepts me better at the way that I am, because there are, maybe it's because of my background and maybe it's because of my mindset, whatever, might fit better with the white community and than with the black community. My honest assessment.
I understand that. So overall, you would basically consider you being raised by a Caucasian mother a good thing, or it is what it is, and she did the best that she could.
I don't see it as a bad thing. So I think in a lot of ways it was positive, but it also, I do think, in light of the questions that have been asked, that it did cause me to miss out on certain things in the black community. I will say, in the area that I lived, that there was definitely a stereotype around the black community, even the area that I live. Because the area I live is kind of somewhat of a high crime area, where a lot of the times those crimes were more or less attributed to the black community. For instance, one particular neighborhood on Sycamore Street was known as being one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in
Is this where you grew up at?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I thought you grew up in a high...
I'm talking about Antioch, California. My particular neighborhood was actually decent.
Oh, okay.
But this particular neighborhood on this particular street was not a good neighborhood.
Okay, I understand.
It was a high crime neighborhood with a lot of drugs and drive-by shootings and whatnot. And it was predominantly black. And so there was this stereotype.
But what were you doing over there? We're never over there. You just
we would pass by, but I never really spent time on Sycamore Street.
Okay. I'm like, well, Ben, what you doing hanging over there with those people? And you know, I do understand everything you just said. And like you said, I do feel that you personally missed out on the black community, on some things, because granted, everything about the black community is not good. Okay? It's not positive. But I do feel that, and this is no disrespect to you or any other family that has adopted black children, that I do feel that when they do that, they need to do their research and make sure that the black child that they adopt has exposure to that black community. That way they don't feel like, this may be a little deep, but if you can answer, I appreciate it. Would you have rather been black or white? Like, and it's like when you're being raised, even although your dad was black, but your mother was white, when you're being raised like that, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say brainwashing, but you're not getting that exposure. There are great things about the community as well as there are some negative things about them. So do you, like, I mean, what's really going on if you would like to share with us? Because this just will help people around the world better understand you, better understand people that come from a household like yours.
I think a real downside maybe to this is I don't know much about black history in America.
You're not the only one though, Ben. I grew up where I grew up, in the hood, in poverty, and I don't know much about them. It's sad. Like, I don't know much about our history, so I don't think you should, like, feel too bad about that you know your mom or whatever did.
I will say it is something I would like to learn more about moving forward. But yeah, I wasn't really told much about it.
So like, you mean to tell me like your mom never taught you anything? Your dad?
They did, but my memory of it is not very good because I was homeschooled from 3rd grade to the end of high school, and here and there would come up, but maybe not as much as maybe if I was a black household, a full black household.
I did. Wow.
Well, my idea of like blacks to some degree was kind of shaped to some degree by my dad, because he would talk about life in the South in the 60s. And he was talking about his experience with racism.
Right. But then, do you ever question him? You say he grew up in South Carolina, the South. Have you? Because see, if I was interviewing your dad, I would have so many questions right now. Do you think he like betrayed the black community? First of all, I mean, you know what I'm trying to say, man? You went from the South, you done married a Caucasian woman. Did you ever look at him any different like that? Like, what kind of, you know what I'm trying to say, man? I don't know.
I don't see that betraying the black community.
But he didn't went through all that. I'm sure he probably shared with you stories of how he had to do with racism, how the white people were to him, for him to come all the way wherever he was and then marry a Caucasian woman.
Well,
did you ever...
From what I heard, it was more like he had heard good things about California, and he decided, I guess after college, I'm going to move out to California. I can't remember when he did that, but he came out and he got to know people in California, and it was different than his experience in the South. It was a lot more positive.
So the white people were different from the ones that were. Okay, I get it. Okay.
Yeah, he did not experience racism like what he dealt with in the South.
Got it. Did you ever ask him, like, Dad, why'd you pick Mom? She's Caucasian and you're black, and where you come from? Like, did you ever ask anything like that? Or was there like a respect level you knew you couldn't ask things like that? Or
no, it just never occurred to me to ask that. So,
would you ask him now after talking to me? I'm curious. Like, what happened? I need to make my way to Antioch. Like, what's going on? They'll probably grill me. Never mind. But yeah, I'm just about done with this interview. I just wanted to come and just share a different light on things, and then also too, where you can see the pros and cons when you're raised by a black family or when you're raised by a white family, and you can see the pros and cons. So there's pros and cons to everything, and I just thank you, Ben, for coming to share your story. We didn't get too deep into it, but I appreciate your honesty, and I hope that one day you do. Although there's a lot of negative things you heard about the black community, there's still some good things, and hopefully one day you can learn that history, or you can go to Africa and travel. It's pretty different, but you could just do things to tap into yourself and love yourself more. I'm not saying you don't, but love yourself for being black. I don't know. It's kind of, you get what I'm trying to say? So
a little bit, yeah.
Well, why you do that, Ben?
Well, it's just I want the choice to know my culture to be a legitimate choice, because like I went to a Christian club on campus, Campus Crusade for Christ, and they would at Cal Poly Pomona, okay. And they would push you to know your culture. And to me, my culture, to some degree, was obviously Black history, but to them, their culture was like, so my roots are actually, my biological roots are, I believe, in Kenya. And so they're thinking Kenya, and I'm thinking to myself, no, that's not, to me, that's not really my culture. Personally, I've never been to Kenya.
Me neither.
So I don't know. I don't know. And I don't like feeling pressured into, you have to know. It's like, but why?
But it is good to know. You know why, Ben? Because you don't really know how. I wouldn't say that. Talking to you and over the amount of months that I've been knowing you, I feel that there is a lot of lack of self, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not trying to offend you. Like, I wouldn't say self-love, but I guess self-love, that's just the only thing that comes to me as far as being Black, because you were just conditioned to be raised how you were and you didn't have the exposure. Am I kind of making sense? You kind of get what I'm trying to say?
Sort of, but it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, if I want to explore, I'll explore.
And if you don't, you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically the way I see it.
And overall, his life was what? I think pretty good, right?
I would say it was okay. I think there are things that could have been better, but I don't think it necessarily was. I don't necessarily see it as necessarily so much of a skin color issue. I see it more as I grew up in church, and I think that is the part that, in a way,
kind of messed you. We're not gonna get into it though, because man, that'll be a whole other video. It's gonna be a whole hour long. But so I have two more questions just popped in my head. One, and you don't have to answer if you don't. Have you ever met your birth mother, or did she try to contact you? And two, if you can go back and do it again, would you like to be exposed to the Black community?
No, I have not met my birth mother.
You have not?
No, I have not.
Our father, none of that?
No, I haven't.
Okay. And would you have like what if today she came knocking? Would you have liked to just sit down and have a talk with her, like, what's really going on? Like, is there something missing from you? Like, do you feel like something is... No, I'm asking, you know why? Okay, guess what, Ben? You probably didn't know this. My mom didn't raise me. So I was only raised by my dad.
Okay.
I knew who she was. She would come every couple of years.
Okay.
But sometimes I feel like her not being around kind of messed me up as far as being a better mother. You get what I'm saying? Just different things. So do you feel like there's something missing from you for you not knowing your birth parents or anything?
I personally don't feel like there's something missing. Although I will say I had an interesting experience when I got a letter in the mail that had my biological name, not my adoptive name, my biological name, on it. And for me, that was kind of weird, because it was like, it's a whole other person.
Yeah.
That was kind of a weird thing for me. And it's like a side of myself that I'm not very familiar with. What was your biological name? Oh, Marvin B. Trago.
Marvin B. Trago.
Yes.
I never heard of B. Trago.
Yeah, because it's Hispanic too.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're Hispanic and Black? I didn't know, man. Oh, okay. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay. And now his name is what? Benjamin?
Hunter.
Do you think... see, I got too many questions. I be want to know. You went from Marvin to Benjamin. Do you think your parents tried to make you white or something? You went to a Benjamin Hunter, and again, this is no disrespect to him or his. If I'm crossing on, please let me know. But you know, Ben, I like to ask questions.
Technically, it wouldn't be white, because they were actually naming me after a Bible character.
Oh.
And historically, Bible characters, if you think about it from me, would be no.
Oh.
They would probably, from my guess, would be dark skinned, kind of like what the Arabs are today in the Middle East.
Wow, interesting. Thank you so much. We were supposed to end this, and I get coming up with questions. Thank you so much for your time. Is there any last thing you want to tell any person or child or teenage who is dealing with what you dealt with, or how did you deal with, you know, not knowing your parents? Is there any last words you have for anyone? Being raised by a Caucasian mother, anything?
I guess my only advice would be know your history.
Okay.
Because that is something I am curious about moving forward. I really don't know that much about the history of Black America, I guess. And that is something I am curious about and would like to learn more about.
Do you just want to know the Black history, or you want to know your family tree also?
Honestly, just the Black history.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, I heard it from Ben. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And have a good day.